Hi everyone, it's Tracy from Temperance Tarot, and I am here today to show you it's sold on Amazon US as M&A Limited tarot deck. It's a Rider-Waite-Smith. I'm gonna have to call it a knockoff. It's a Rider-Waite-Smith pack of cards, but it was advertised as coming in a hard box and having a linen card stock, and it was, you know, less than $14, and I was ordering from Amazon anyway. So I thought I'd get it and do a little video just to let you see it, and I am also going to compare it with a number of my other Rider-Waite decks, some of which are US Games authorized and some are not. So let's get started. Let's get started first by just looking at a few of these cards. Now, I'm not going to show every card, but the box, it comes in a sturdy two-piece box that opens in a rather unusual way that I actually kind of like. And you slip the cards out. It comes with a little pamphlet, which actually has pretty good card meanings in it, and a number of spreads. The thing I think is interesting about the card meanings is that it gives a yes or no answer for every card. So if you have a question that's a yes or no answer and you draw a card, the pamphlet will tell you if this card means yes or if this card means no. Some of them which mean, you know, maybe, or it can't be foretold at this time. So not a bad little pamphlet. It also comes with a little advertising card that talks about them. Thank you for your purchase. They're mandalimited.com. The cardstock, let's see if I can get it to show. The cardstock reminds me very much of the original Game of Thrones cardstock. And once we've gotten through all of this, I'll give it a shuffle and show you how it shuffles. I don't know if that's reading, but it is definitely that linen-y cardstock. It's really nice cardstock. The images themselves do appear to be like copies of copies. Let's zoom in a sec. And they aren't wonderfully clear. I think the best illustration, they're not awful copies. And if you were looking to give a tarot deck to somebody who maybe wasn't a tarot enthusiast, who just wanted to play with tarot a little bit, sure, why not? It's less expensive, but the quality of the image is just, you know, it's just not quite there. And I think this is best illustrated. The colors aren't quite there too, and we'll see that as I do some comparisons. But the illustration itself shows best in the Five of Wands. And you can see in that Five of Wands, you know, their faces just aren't all that distinct, and they're a little bit hard to see. So not an awful deck, not a wonderful deck. I'm going to compare it to some of both. I'm going to begin by comparing it to the original Rider-Waite Tarot pack. So here on the left we have the M&A Limited deck, and on the right we have the original Rider-Waite Tarot pack. This deck is not the one that you would buy if you went out and bought it today. It is a vintage deck, but it's like vintage 90s, so it's not that old. If you look carefully, you can see that the faces are different on these fools. So here's your face on your M&A, and here's your face on the original. So they're not exactly the same. And look, you can see on the Magician, the M&A Magician actually, I think, looks better than the one in the original Rider-Waite. I was thinking that the colors were going to be closest to this deck, but I don't think they are. This deck has a lot of, the original Rider-Waite Tarot pack has a lot of this sort of grayish brown color in it that I'm not seeing over here. And yeah, the faces are better, I think, over here than they are over here. This one does have the Rosacea Emperor. The images are smaller. There's more border, but the card size is almost identical. The original Rider-Waite might be a millimeter, not even a millimeter wider, and certainly not any taller. So they're pretty much standard tarot size. The backs, I think the backs are pretty hideous. Here we are with the Five of Wands in both decks. And in this one, I actually believe that the original Rider-Waite Tarot pack is better. And look at that. That's not in this image at all. This little bit of scribbliness is not in this image at all. Here we have the Eight of Swords. And you can see that this one looks really washed out. But this one has that sort of taupey sky, which I don't particularly like either. And here we have the King of Swords. And in this deck, the face on the original Rider-Waite is much better than on the M&A. But again, those sort of taupey brown clouds. I just don't like clouds that color. And then let's look at the King of Pentacles. He does tend to be muddy in almost all the decks. All of the detail just gets mushed up into one giant blob. And yeah, in both of these images, all of that detail is just one giant blob of mess. Okay. Now let's compare it to the edition, the yellow box edition that's available right now if you were to go buy an official US Games yellow box. This is probably why I thought it was going to be closer in coloration to the original Rider-Waite, because the yellow box version, which is on this side, is just, it's awful. You know, it is just such a garish yellow, and I'm just not fond of it. And here's the Lovers. And the Hermit, which I like to show because of the shade of blue that they use in the back of the sky. And you know, of course, nowadays, the yellow box doesn't have Pixie's calligraphy on it. The M&A does appear to have Pixie's, it has Pixie's calligraphy on it. Here's a good example of a difference in the color. See here, the Justice card has that bright yellow in the background. And in this one, it's just not bright yellow. It's got a little bit of yellow here on this side, but the yellow has been completely washed out. Even in the crown, the yellow is washed out, and this is green, and this is sort of a weird greeny gold color. So very different coloration. I think again it's from this being probably a copy of a copy. Because the way I understand it, and I could be completely wrong, but the way I understand it, US Games can't own the copyright to the images of the original decks that were published in like 1919 and between 1919 and whenever they stopped publishing them originally. And if you have one of those decks, one of those original decks, it is not copyrighted material, and you can make copies until the cows come home and sell them. That was my understanding of the copyright. Now, once US Games got a hold of it and they put their copyright on it, you can't make copies of this image and sell it, because this one is US Games copyrighted image. But if you actually own one of those original decks, you can make copies of that. My understanding of how it works. Here's the Five of Wands, and you notice that in both Five of Wands, neither of them have that little scribbly thing that the original Rider-Waite Tarot had. So I know there are different versions of the original, Pam A, Pam B, Pam C. I don't know the difference between them, but apparently this Rider-Waite version and the original Rider-Waite version are not the same version of the deck. Here's the Four of Cups. Here's the Five of Swords. You can see the sky has gotten a bit washed out. All the colors seem to be a bit washed, which could be a good thing. And here's the Seven of Pentacles. Yeah, that blue is just... Ugh. And let's look again at the King of Pentacles. You know, I really don't see that one's any better than the other. The Fool's faces seem to be the same drawing of the Fool, whereas the original Rider-Waite had just a different face. Size-wise, this is the M&A, this is the Rider-Waite, the Rider Tarot deck, the yellow box. You can see that the cardstock is thicker on the M&A. We'll have a quick look at the coloration comparison to the Smith-Waite Centennial. I swear I have a full-size copy of this deck somewhere, but I cannot find it to save my life. So we're looking at the version that comes in a 10 that's smaller. There's the Hermit. How about the Four of Wands this time? Yeah, you can see the yellow in the back just sort of fades away to nothing. The Six of Cups. And for the last one, from the Smith-Waite Centennial, the Two of Pentacles. So far, I think I like the coloration on the Smith-Waite Centennial the best. Okay, now we have it next to the Tarot of A.E. Waite, the AGM Urania edition. Again, the M&A is still a little taller. It's a little bit bigger, thicker deck. This is the one with the crackle backs. There's Death. And the Ten of Wands. Notice how white his shirt is, and his shirt's very gray. And his hair is blonder, and his hair is tanner. Close. This is almost the same color as his tights or his pants. The bushes in the back are a paler green, but we didn't lose the sky color this time. The Two of Swords. The Knight of Swords. And here on the Six of Pentacles, you can see how truly washed out the back of the Six of Pentacles is, and so much so that his face is almost a little washed out. And now over here on the right, I have Pam's Vintage Tarot, which, like this one, is a copy of an original. Temperance. And in the Pam's Vintage, we don't have any titles. Knight of Wands. So yeah, not a really great way to compare in the Pam's Vintage to the M&A, because the Pam's Vintage has been modified. Okay, that's all the decks that I'm going to compare it to. Now let's give it a shuffle and see how it shuffles. Yes, it shuffles very nicely. It very, very much reminds me of the cardstock from the Game of Thrones, the first edition of Game of Thrones Tarot. Yeah, you can hear that linen finish. So there you go. That is a quick look at this M&A Rider-Waite Tarot, which they don't call it anything like that. They don't give anybody any credit. It's just the unknowable lives in a pack of cards, and it's called tarot cards. But if you search Amazon US, I don't know about any of the other Amazons, but on Amazon US you can find it under M&A Tarot Deck, if it's something you're interested in. For the price, it might make a great study deck. One you'd be willing to chop up or write on or something like that. I might use it for an art project or something. I don't know. So thanks for watching, everyone, and I hope you have a wonderful, fabulous day.